There's a major problem going on with the LSAT and its validity right now, and it's something I'm deeply concerned about. It relates to the fact that LSAC has been reusing LSAT test forms much more so than it did in the past. Previously, the LSAT was only 4 times a year. February LSATs were unreleased, and LSAC would reuse them for international or overseas administrations, for Sabbath observers administrations, and cases in which the LSAT was postponed in certain locations due to inclement weather. So the reuse cases were pretty minimal. They weren't that often, and it was incredibly unlikely that the same person would take the LSAT multiple times on different administrations due to the very unique and specific cases in which exam forms were reused. But now that the LSAT is going to be administered much more frequently, this becomes a much bigger problem. The LSAC has opened the door to offering the LSAT several times a year, not just the previous 4 times a year. And so as a result, they will either have to produce more original test forms, or they just have to reuse the same test forms more often. And due to the high cost of creating new LSAT test forms from scratch, it looks like LSAC has chosen instead to simply reuse the LSAT more and more. And so we're seeing people pop up on message boards and forums talking about specific questions they might have encountered overseas or on a Sabbath observer's test date. And a lot of test prep companies are now making it their mission to figure out, oh, this Sabbath observer's exam, that's the same one as the February LSAT 2 years ago, or that's the same as the overseas one last October. And so people are starting to piece things together bit by bit. And this is mirroring something that happened with the SAT a number of years ago as well. And I'm including an article below with details about that. But the bottom line is that test prep companies would send their instructors in to take the exam and try to memorize as many questions as possible. They would grill students outside of test centers trying to piece together the exam as well. Then they reconstruct it online, kind of like a wiki. The more people you have involved, the easier it is to do this. And so if you get a couple dozen people in on the game, they can slowly piece the exam together. And then this, of course, affects the integrity of the exam because future students might know most of or even all of the content before they ever walk in. So they're not taking the exam blind. It becomes a very uneven playing field as those who do have access to the questions have a leg up on those who don't. So this is a major problem because unlike the GMAT and GRE, which are computerized and offered virtually every weekday, the LSAT cannot easily add new questions. They can't easily create new LSAT questions because GMAT and GRE questions, they have a seemingly infinite supply of vocabulary words. They can always swap in or swap out numbers for a given math problem, but the LSAT is an exam of language, and it's an exam of deeply complex logical arguments and passages, and it takes much more work to create an original LSAT question than it does to create an original GMAT or GRE question. And so LSAC is in a bit of a bind where they want to offer the exam more frequently, yet they don't want to create more and more new test forms. By one estimate a number of years ago, it cost them over $1 million to produce a single LSAT test form, which is why, despite the fact that they have greatly expanded their LSAT testing schedule, offering it much more than the previous only 4 times per year, they are still only releasing 3 exams per year, just as before, because they want to reuse those test forms for the international overseas administrations, for the Sabbath observers administrations, and for cases of inclement weather where the exam might have to be postponed. So this is a big problem. I'm not sure what the solution is, but I'm hoping that LSAC will stay on top of it because I do want them to preserve the integrity of this exam. I do want there to be a level playing field, and I want the LSAT to be around for many good years to come. So whenever you're taking the LSAT, I wish you all the best. LSAC, if you're listening out there, I hope you're taking steps to address this. And when anyone watching out there, please feel free to reach out if you need anything at all. I love hearing from students. Email me, leave a comment, and I wish you all the best on the LSAT.